read the Chinese, and then that'll give you a minute to think about it.
Sure.
How do we effectively explain the role of the Holy Spirit?
Sorry.
Come back in a minute. Okay. How do we effectively explain the role of the Holy Spirit in faith and reasoning to a historical critical person, someone who believes in human autonomy?
我们如何向历史批判学派的人有效地解释圣灵在信心和理性中的角色？
There are several ways to do this.
我们有几个方法可以做这件事情。
Probably the easiest way would be to start by simply recognizing the limitations that all human beings have.
首先，第一个方法的第一点就是，首先你要知道说，所有人都有的一种局限。
For example, we misunderstand communication between two people.
举例来说，我们彼此之间会有误会，我们在沟通当中会有误会。
And we are more likely to misunderstand if someone is saying something we don't want to accept.
如果有人在说一些我们不愿意接受的事情的时候，我们更加容易会误会那个人，会更加不愿意接受那个人所讲的东西。
So, since the Bible is telling the reader that he needs to repent of his sin before he can understand,
而既然圣经在告诉读者，你必须要先悔改你的罪，你才能够明白。
it's very likely that a historical critical person would misunderstand the message because it's unwelcome.
所以，这个历史批判学派自然呢会很容易误会圣经的意思，因为圣经这样子的教导对他来说是很难被接受的。
I'll let it go that.
OK， 就讲到这里。
We can always talk later.
有别的问题可以课后谈。
How should we interpret verses that are difficult to explain from a Christocentric point of view?
如果有难以用基督为中心解释的经文，我们应该如何回应？
Probably the best way is to try to see how a theme in that passage goes forward into the New Testament.
或者最有效的方法呢，就是去看这段旧约的经文当中有什么样的主题是一直延续到新约里面的。
Sometimes if you're trying to interpret just a detail, you'll hit a dead end.
有些时候，如果你尝试要解释一些细节的话，你可能会走到死胡同。
But in the larger context, there will be a theme that goes forward into the New Testament that should help you.
但是如果你看更大的处境、更大的语境的话，你会看到一些主题，这些主题呢，会帮助你连接到新约。
Why does God reveal himself across time?
为什么神要用历史性的方式来启示自己？
This is kind of a philosophical question, but I will do my best.
这好像是一个很哲学性的问题不过我尝试回答。
It's probably makes most sense to me to say that it's like a story.
我最能理解的方式呢，就是把它看成一个故事。
So in a story that's one sentence long, you can't do anything interesting, you can't surprise people.
如果故事只有一句长的话，其实你不能添加什么有趣的因素，你也不能够使别人感到惊喜。
If you develop a longer, more complicated story, you can introduce new characters, you can surprise, you can do all kinds of interesting things.
但如果你把故事加长的话，你就能添加很多不同的元素，很多不同的角色，能够添加很多不同令人惊喜的因素在里面。
There are other answers, but that will have to do.
当然，我还有很多我可以给其他的答案，但我觉得这个答案本身就够了。
Let's try another one.
Oh, I need to explain this.
Okay.
So 我先读英文哈。So according to what you just said, which is the New Testament and Old Testament cannot be fully interpreted without the Old Testament and New Testament, vice versa. I wonder to how much extent that the knowledge of salvation is sufficient in the New Testament. That means, is the New Testament sufficient for me to obtain the knowledge of salvation? If yes, then how could the Old Testament benefit the New Testament? If not, then what is lacking in terms of knowledge of salvation? 那根据刚才老师的说法呢，就是旧约跟新约当中， 旧约需要新约才能够完全被解释，然后新约也一样，就是旧约需要新约，新约需要旧约。那请问我是否能在新约当中单单在新约当中就得着救恩的知识呢？如果能的话，那请问旧约能够给新约添加什么内容？如果不能的话，那请问新约当中所缺少的救恩知识是什么？
It's common to give the Gospel of John to someone who's new to Christianity.
那通常呢，对于一些新信徒，我们会介绍他读约翰福音。
So the Gospel of John begins, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, etc.
那约翰福音开始就说这个太初有道，道与神同在，道就是神。
It is possible to understand John's message that salvation from sin comes through Jesus' death and resurrection.
我们也可以从约翰福音当中明白，这个要得救的话，就是要透过耶稣的死和复活。
What did I say? Without understanding John's allusion to Genesis 1 in the first verse.
当然我们要明白这一点，这个救恩的这一点，我们不需要真正知道说，约翰福音1章1节所写的这句话，其实是在影射着，或者是在指向创世纪。
But that it's better to understand the whole message and not just the basics.
但是呢，要明白整全的教导，比明白也是很重要的。
And since John included lots of material that goes back to the Old Testament in his Gospels,
既然约翰在他的福音书当中有包含许多指向旧约当中的资料，
and since our highest goal is to know God fully,
既然我们最高的目标，我们人生最高的目标是要更加全面的认识神，
we should want to know more than just the basics.
我们不只是要知道基础而已。
So we would want to understand all the links between John and the Old Testament.
所以我们要去明白约翰福音当中所有与这个旧约当中的联系和连接。
The question about Hebrews I'll discuss with you after the Q&A.
希伯来书的这个问题，我们就私下再来讨论哦。
Okay. Would you help us distinguish between a Christocentric and a Christotelic interpretation?
Can you explain what is Christotelic?
It has to do with the goal.
OK。那请问你能不能帮助我们区分以基督为中心和以基督为目标的释经方法？
There can be no difference at all, meaning it depends on what you mean by the term.
这两者之间可以是完全没有差别的，这取决于你怎么定义这两个词的意思。
But sometimes Christotelic tries to connect Old and New Testament without saying that the Old Testament is in fact pointing towards this goal.
但有些时候以基督为目标的释经方法，在解释旧约的时候，会用一种解释方法，就是他解释了，却没有在谈到说这个经文最终是在基督里面成全。
So just understand the way whoever the speaker is using the term, and you'll know what to do.
所以你要先去看这个人在用这个词的时候，他的意思是什么，才能够判断你要怎么样回应他。Second question.
The question about Bart, I can discuss with you after that.
关于巴特的问题也是私下讨论。So the last one would be this.
Okay. Right. When we look back on the Old Testament from the New Testament, in order to understand the new, how can we link the two? By what method? And how to avoid overlooking or underemphasizing the Old Testament, the context and the culture of the book, and so on.
当我们从新约中去回顾旧约，理解旧约中的预言、启示、预表和人物时，我们该如何精确地连接两约，以基督为中心，却又不会过度忽略或强调旧约的历史文化和我这个字读不出哦，和文化的背景等客观因素，和作者的背景等客观因素。
This is kind of a complicated question. One recommendation would be read the book of Hebrews, again.
这是一个很复杂的问题。那其中有一个建议就是你要去读希伯来书。
And the other one, unfortunately, there's not a short answer to the question. It would be to.
另一个答案呢，可能我不能给你一个很简短的答案。
All I can say is kind of what I tried to say in the speech, which is to try to read the Old Testament in light of the New without forcing the new on the Old.
就好像我在刚才讲座中所讲的，尝试用新约的角度来去读旧约，但是不要把新约的意思强加在旧约之上。Last one. Oh, let me read it for you. I'm in Chinese first. 如果基督教的解释方式应用历史批判解释圣经，它的程度是什么 ？So if evangelicals uses the historical criticism methods to interpret the Bible, to what degree can we use? Can we employ the methods?
Right. The idea is not to. The idea, first of all, is to have clear what your commitments as a Christian involve in terms of worldview, what's possible, what's the source of truth, that kind of stuff.
首先，第一点呢，你是要先搞清楚你作为基督教的世界观，什么是对的，什么是错的，这个基础要先搞对。
So the example of Troeltsch came up during the speech. Troeltsch.
首先我们刚才在讲座当中有提到 Troeltsch 这个人。
He says that all events must be explained in terms of cause and effect.
他说，所有的事情都要从因果的关系来看。
So, a historical critical analysis of the resurrection would say that there is no possible cause, so the effect, the resurrection, is impossible.
所以，如果你从一个历史批判的角度来去看复活的话，你会说，复活这个事情本身没有一个合理的因，所以这个复活的果是不可能产生的。
Evangelicals also believe in cause and effect.
其实福音派本身我们也相信这个因果。
There's nothing secular or anti-biblical about cause and effect.
可能我用起因跟结果会比较好。起因跟结果这个本身并不是一个世俗或错误的观念。
But we would allow for supernatural causes.
但我们却允许超自然的因在里面起作用。
And therefore a supernatural effect. So God raising Jesus from the dead. Both cause and effect are supernatural.
既然有超自然的因，就自然会有超自然的果。所以耶稣的复活本身就是这样子的一个情况，超自然的因和果。
That's one example of. You can still use many of the principles, cause and effect or probability, but in a Christian worldview that doesn't impose limits on what the text can say and do.
那我们还是可以用这些词汇，不管是因果还是说可能性，但是在一个基督教的世界观里面，我们要用我们自己的一个特定的方法来看这些事情。
Thank you for your questions. Good. Okay. To you.
如何和青少年或圣经历史不熟的人教导在新约光照读旧约 ？How do we teach youth or teenagers or people that are not that do not have a lot of understanding with biblical history about reading the Old Testament in light of the New Testament?
Probably the simplest and best answer to that question is simply to have them read the New Testament carefully.
我觉得可能一个最好的做法就是先让他们仔细的去读新约。
The reason I suggest that is because about 10% of the text of the New Testament is actually the Old Testament being quoted.
我这么说的原因呢，是因为新约当中有这个10%的内容呢，就是在引用旧约。
So if we learn to think of the Old Testament the way that New Testament authors think of it,
因此，如果我们去学习新约的作者是如何去看旧约，
we'll be developing the ability to read the Old Testament on the basis of the best possible example.
那我们就能够以这个最好的范例的这种模式、跟概念、跟想法来去看旧约，就是效法新约的作者去看怎么看旧约。
Anything else?
还有其他的问题吗？
有没有别的要问他的问题？ All right, I'll ask you a question then.
Please.
Sometimes we hear it's almost at the end. You say all passages can be interpreted Christological. It almost sounds like this kind of confession. Everything's related to everything, and I can find some way to relate this to Christ. So everything is related to Christ. There are passages in the Old Testament. Sometimes people mention Proverbs. It's a little bit hard to see. How would you reply to that if I say that's sort of what you're saying? I can find some way around the world to get back to Christ. A little bit related to this, do you mean every passage can get to Christ or to a New Testament theme? Okay.
我翻译一下问题。刚才老师有说，在旧约当中的每一段经文都可以用一个以基督为中心的角度来解释。那这句话是不是代表说，在旧约当中，无论是什么经文，基本上都可以所谓这个条条大路通基督都可以解释到基督身上。可是，在旧约当中有一些比较困难的经文，比方说像箴言书之类的经文，那要怎么解释到基督身上是比较困难的。然后我们是不是看到箴言或者比较困难的经文，就要想办法去绕一个大圈，都要绕回基督身上？这是第一个问题了。第二个类似的问题呢，就是当我们说旧约连接到新约的时候，是说旧约的每一段经文都可以连接到新约的一个主题呢，还是旧约的每一个经文都可以连接到基督身上？
So yes, I made a rather large claim at the end of the speech.
我在刚才讲座的最后一部分讲了一些比较大的一些话。
I did not make the claim because I can demonstrate now exactly how every text relates to Christ.
我讲那句话的时候，我的意思并不是说我现在可以马上示范给你看，每一段经文都可以讲到基督。
But because I'm convinced that it is possible to do so.
而是我已经被说服，我们是可以做到这样子的。
It's a skill we need to develop.
这是一个我们需要一直不断操练的技巧。
Some of the reasons that I'm confident that it is always possible.
我就是相信说，我们总是做得到。
Involve, for example, Jesus' role in the creation of all things.
比方说耶稣在这个创造世界万物创造这件事情当中所扮演的角色。
So Colossians 1, for example, says that all things have their meaning in relation to him.
比方说哥罗西书1章就说万物都是在基督里面才有它的含义，才有它的意义。
So that's true of the cosmos and of the stars and the moon. It's also true of Holy Scripture.
如果这一句话所要指的是整个宇宙、整个万物之间的所有东西的话，那自然这也就是指着旧约里面的每一节经文。
My recommendation would be to start developing this skill with passages that are relatively simple and straightforward.
那我会鼓励大家，首先从一些比较简单和直接的经文先开始操练这样子的技巧。
And to read, to try to find a short and clear book that guides you in how to do that.
然后找一本精简的书来教导你要怎么做。
I'll just mention one title or one author, Graham Goldsworthy. Is Graham Goldsworthy translated into Chinese?
有一个作者叫做 Grant Goldsworthy，
We hope so.
我当然希望他的书有被翻译成中文。
And the second recommendation would again be to see how the New Testament does what it does.
第二个建议呢，一样的，就是要去看新约的作者是怎么样去解释。
And it will surprise you, it continues to surprise me, how many not explicit connections the New Testament makes with the Old.
我们可能会感到吃惊，看到说新约当中在谈到新旧约两节之间的关系，有在谈到非常明显。
So the New Testament authors don't make connections with the Old only when they quote a verse.
新约当中在引用旧约，在谈到旧约的时候，不单单是在他引用旧约的时候才谈到哦。
But when they pick up an idea or a theme or a pattern that they find in the Old Testament
而
as
是
well.
当他们从旧约当中引用一个主题发展到新约当中也是有的。抱歉，我要整理一下，并不是说他非常明显的在用，而是有些时候他的引用、他的延续是不太明显的。
One other good book, Don Carson wrote a book, I don't know the title, but in the same vein as Gould's release.
Don Carson，
Yeah, Carson.
另一个作者是 Don Carson 的书，但不懂有没有翻译成中文。
Well, since that was so easy, I'll give you another one. What would you say about how much of the Old Testament is related to the covenants that's made with Abraham and the covenants? Is that kind of the way that you get to do you view most of the Old Testament in that way related, and that way you get into the New Testament? That's just a general question. Or is there things in the Old Testament that aren't really directly developing the covenant?
请问在旧约当中，是不是所有的经文都是某个程度上可以联系到亚伯拉罕之约，然后透过这些旧约的经文联系到亚伯拉罕的之约，我们才把它连到新约里面去？是不是我们可以这样子来看旧约当中的经文，全部经文都是某个程度上是跟亚伯拉罕的约有关系的？
This is partially an answer to the previous question. Continued.
这个是之前的上一题的答案的延续。
The covenants are like big bridges. A lot of traffic passes over them from the Old Testament to the New.
你把新约跟旧约之间想成是一个桥这样子哈，在这个桥当中有非常多的这个交通流量是从新约流到旧约，旧约流到新约。
But not everything that we find, not all the links between the testaments are directly, explicitly connected to a covenant.
但不是新旧约之间所有的联系都是直接谈到那个约的。
For example, wisdom is not directly connected to a particular covenant.
举例来说，这个智慧这件事情没有和任何的约有一个直接的联系。
But Proverbs, for example, and Deuteronomy connect or define wisdom as living a life that keeps God's law.
但是这个箴言书跟申命记呢，就把这个智慧定义成活在神的律法之下，遵从神的律法而活。
So in that case, wisdom would be connected to a covenant through the idea of law.
所以在这种情况底下呢，这一个智慧呢，就透过遵守律法这一个观念连接到一个约上面。
There are other examples too.
当然还有其他的例子。
好，有没有别的人要问问题？你问他，因为我有这个很危险的，我继续来问，如果你们来问，有没有 ？I will ask， 以后你必须我问3个，你们平等的那么多人，应该有问题可以问他。Sometimes you're reading the New Testament and they quote the Old Testament, and you go back and look at the Old Testament and you think, what does that have to do with this in the New Testament? Do you have that experience, and what do you think should you do at that point?
Right.
那也就是说，我们看到新约引用旧约，可是我们翻到旧约来看那段被引用的旧约的时候，我们会想到这段经文跟他讲的到底有什么关系啊？那你有没有这样子的经历呢？如果面对这种情况的时候，你会如何处理这个问题？
Yes, it does happen to me and to others.
当然，我有这样子的经历过，然后其他的人也发生过这样子的经历。
Probably the most important thing to remember in those cases is that even though the New Testament writer is quoting, say, verse 2 of some chapter in the Old Testament,
当然，我们要注意的是，如果这个新约作者他可能引用的可能是旧约当中的某一章的第2节，
he's aware of a larger context and is probably drawing on the larger context.
但他其实他的概念呢，他其实是在注意这那第2节的整个处境、整个语境当中。那他引用第2节呢，是抱持着可能整段落的一个概念，来这样子来使用。
So if you're standing in the New Testament and you pull on the string
所以
that is the reference,
如果你站在新约当中，你去拉这条线的时候，你会看到它是怎么样参考。
you're going to pull more than one verse. It's several verses or a chapter or 2 chapters.
你会拉更多的经文出来，不只是1节，你会拉到更多的经文，或者是2节，或者是1章，或者是2章的这个语境跟处境。
So the moral of the story is to be a good reader of the Bible, you need to read it again and again and again.
所以中心思想呢，就是如果你要好好读圣经，你就要一直不断的读圣经。
Isn't it kind of part of the problem? You said at the beginning that the New Testament authors sometimes explain how they got from this verse to their thought, but most of the time there is no explanation. There's just, here's the verse and here's the relation, and you have to try to figure out the whole background. Maybe the historical critical school doesn't think of the author that way. They think of them just pulling out one verse, but we think of that. We've got to try to understand the New Testament author's complete background. Is that?
有些时候新约的作者在引用旧约的时候，他们其实并没有提供一个解释，他们基本上就是讲这是我的命题，这个是我引用的经文，这是他们的关系，然后我们这些读者就要自己去想说，他们之间的关系到底是什么？那这种我们要怎么去找到这个解释呢？当然，这个历史批判学派他们就不这么认为，他们就单纯是认为这些新约的作者就是从旧约当中抽经文来自己用。但是我们这些福音派的信徒，我们是相信说，他们是有延续性的。那我们要如何去解释他们之间的关联
？This is a good question that illustrates the importance of believing that Scripture is a unity.
那这个问题呢，其实就很好的诠释了一个信念呢，就是我们要相信圣经本身是合一的。
It doesn't make the question go away.
当然，这个信念不会使我们刚才那个问题就迎刃而解。
But for example, if a New Testament writer quotes one Old Testament text, and you look at the text and you don't immediately understand.
举例来说，如果一个新约的作者他引用了一个旧约经文，你看了那段经文，你不太明白他在讲什么。
The text which he's quoted is part of a context, and that's a unified context.
但他所引用的经文呢，是一个整体当中的一部分。
So it makes sense to look at the larger context to understand how that verse is then and its context used in the New Testament.
所以你就要看那一整个整体、那整个语境、整个处境当中那些经文的含义是什么，然后才来去明白这一个被引用的经文在信仰当中所扮演的角色是什么。
And as the question suggested, if someone with historical critical beliefs is less likely to think there's a unity between the two, or a unity within the text that you're quoting from.
这个历史批判学派呢，他们就比较不会去想说整个圣经之间是有合一性，他们也不会去想说那节经文在它的语境当中是有一个合一性，是扮演这一个角色的。
Which is an illustration of the fact that what we expect to find, we will find.
其实这就很好的诠释了我们想看到什么就会看到什么。
Meaning, if you don't expect to find a link, it's going to make it harder to find it.
换句话说，如果你不想看到连接的话，你基本上就找不到连接。
Okay. Finally, not related to the talk tonight, could you tell us a little bit about the Puritan Reformed Theological Seminary and what's the vision for the THM program and how it is that you ended up over here, and just what's going on at the seminary? Maybe a little bit about the international work there at the seminary and their concern, and where did all this come from?
那最后一个问题呢，基本上跟这个课程没太大关系哈。请问老师能不能大概解释一下这个清教徒神学院现在目前的处境他们的意向是什么？他们想要达到的目标是什么？然后老师是怎么今天来到这里的？然后在这一个神学院当中，现在神学院关心的是什么？神学院的预期和期望是什么？
The THM and PhD programs in particular are developed in such a way to serve the global church.
那我们发展这个神硕跟博士班的课程的目的是要去服侍全球的教会。
So, for example, rather than you coming to us, we come to you.
举例来说，与其让你们到我们那里，我们选择是我们到你们这里。
But more seriously, it is part of the seminary's vision to make its education as accessible as possible.
但是我要表达的呢，就是我们的神学院的目标呢，或者的意向，就是要让神学教育变得垂手可得。
the theological basis for there are several theological bases. One would be it's part of our mission to reach the world.
当然，我们有好几个神学基础哈。第一个我可以说就是我们是我们的意向呢是要去去到整个世界。
And it's perhaps even more important that believers, Christian believers, wherever they are we are in the same body as you. We are one body with you.
然后无论你是在世界上的哪一个地方的基督徒，我们跟你都是一个身体。
So geographical distance is not really important if the hand can help the foot and can help the ear and whatever.
因此，这个地理的距离呢，不是一个太大的问题。如果这个眼睛能帮到耳朵，就帮；耳朵能帮到手，也帮。
And I would add right after that we are convinced that we have as much to learn from you as hopefully you have to learn from us.
那最后一点呢，我要表达的就是，我觉得我们从你们身上有很多要学习的东西，然后我们也希望你能从我们身上学到东西。
So for us, and for me, it's really a privilege. It's not a responsibility or a duty that I have to do. It's something that's enriching and wonderful.
所以对我来说，能够来到你们这里是很荣幸的事情，而不是一个责任。对我来说是非常感恩，能够非常多学习的一个环境。
最后一个机会，没人在问，我们就是到这里，你可以留下来，若要跟老师讲一些的话语，就可以如此做。我们最后一起来做一个祷告。Let's close in prayer. 就我们来到你的面前，我们要感谢你，你自己恩待我们，能够是有在美国这个改革中。清教徒改革宗神学院能够关心到我们和派他们的老师们到这里，再教导我们，是能够关心我们，能够预备一些的华人做这个神学的教育。就我们也求你纪念Dr. Timmer，他神学院他的一家人，继续的使用他们，保护他们，他们的家能够是经验到你的丰富的恩典。我们也为他那个小孩。也要仰望你，就我们感谢你，你赐给我们你的奇妙的话语，是从创世纪到现在，你都是在启示了我们，在教导我们。我们离开你很远的时候，你就是差派一个亚伯拉罕，